And welcome to the Grounds and Environmental Services Committee, Monday the 10th of June 2024. First on the agenda is for apologies for absence.
From Councillor Adams.
Right, okay. And the second agenda item is for declaration of interests. Does anyone have any declared interests that they want to divulge now? Start of the meeting? No, okay. Well, I have one myself as council representative for Menning Sheds, which I believe we're going to talk about later. Declaration of interest, but as in previous meetings, you know, we do come to a point that you suddenly realise you become aware of that is a declaration of interest, then please express that. Thank you. The third agenda point is to agree the meetings, the minutes of the meeting on the 11th of March 2024 as a true copy. It's previously circulated. Do I have authority to sign these off? Could I have a nominee and a seconder, please?
Happy to. I'm happy to suggest that that's what I'm doing. Yeah.
I'm happy to second it. Thank you. Those in favour? Those against? Those abstaining? Okay, agenda item 4 is to receive the minutes of the meetings of the planning subcommittee. Now, where we've got 5 meetings to go through, so I'll just quickly go through the pages, which should follow your agenda. The first one is on Monday, the 4th of March. So page 3, page 4, page 5. And that takes us on to Monday, the 26th of March, page 6, page 7, and on to Monday, the 15th of April, page 8 and page 9. Monday, the 7th of April, page 10 and 11. And finally, Tuesday, the 28th of May, pages 12 and 13. Take it no one's got any queries or questions regarding those.
Members, just to update you that the Vernon Place application we've found out is going to the Development Committee on the 26th of June. So obviously plans haven't had the opportunity to review any changes to it since the last time it was discussed. And it doesn't come up on our system because of the nature of it being a slightly different application, so it didn't pop up in the way they normally would. So I've spoken to Councillor Kotarski, who chairs plans now, and he suggested that we have a additional plan sub meeting just before full council on Monday the 24th of June, which will give you the opportunity to take any final views on that application before it goes to DMC on the 26th.
That point noted. Okay. So the next agenda point is point 5, which is the action tracker for grounds and environmentals services. We'll just take you through briefly for each point here, which is on the action tracker, which is the first one was the use of the toilet facilities in the hub. I believe that a sign's now been installed for that, so that's now been completed. The planters damage, which has caused, I believe, is now with Central Beds. So that's an ongoing one. So we're waiting for them, I believe, to come back. Isn't it? Yeah. Okay. The third one is the allotted land at each recreation ground to consider opportunities for development of allotment land, which I believe is now on. It's now part of our management plans. So that is an ongoing point of action. incorporated into that heading. The security measures that meant more regarding the adding bollards or some sort of security measures at the entrance for vehicles access is no longer required because of the incorporated planning design we decided to go for in the end. So that has now been completed. Development Management Committee meeting, which was put in place for members to attend to discuss any residents' support, their objections towards any applications. That's an ongoing point I see on here, which is down to the town mayor. I'm not sure if that was you, Liz, or if it's now Louise, if there's any update on that.
We've updated on that on the last occasion.
Yeah, that needs to be just marked as.
Yeah.
We need to take off the complete ones.
The next point on there is the closed cemetery churchyard. Now this is regarding members' requests for future report on the closed cemetery churchyard at Priory Church, which Dunstable Town Council maintain. An update on that. It's an ongoing topic there, as you can see, but a report is scheduled to be provided in the September Grounds and Environmental Service Committee on that one. So it is in hand. Next point on there is recreation grounds. Specifically, there's an item here for French's Avenue to discuss the various options and breakdowns of the costs of creating a link between the motorcycle barrier to the existing circular path and for resurfacing of the entire pathway. Now, this is to be in our action agenda for tonight, so that is complete in this aspect that it's come to now to the committee. And we can discuss and agreed on tonight, which we'll get to later. The next one is the green spaces projects for officers for and install a defibrillator in the phone box kiosk, as we discussed before. Again, that's an ongoing one, and again, that's to be talked about and agreed at our meeting this evening later on. And finally, the Mentmore Recreation Ground was to ask to look at the possibility of any spare matting from the French's Avenue to be put down in the entrance, because during the wet weather it was carving up quite a lot into lots of muddy ruts, and it was getting difficult for people to navigate that area. So a temporary matting has now been put down, which is matted into the grass quite well. John's aware of it. I've spoken to him about it, and we may look at improving that or put additional matting down as necessary. But that's an ongoing thing, and we'll obviously keep that reviewed. That's kept up to date with the action tracker. One. The next point here is point 6 of the agenda, which is the Bennett Splash Park information report, which I believe either James or Lauren is going to take us through.
Lauren,
Yeah.
first time.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Lauren. So I think I've met quite a few of you now, but I have taken over Splash Manager at the Splash Park. So I'm quite looking forward to delivering the first report. So as some people may be aware, the Splash Park was unfortunately delayed in its opening this year. We had an issue with our water safety machine. Originally, we were looking at potentially taking 4 to 6 weeks to get that up and running and operational again. Luckily, thanks on a big part to James here, we managed to get that pushed to 2 weeks. So we were able to get things up and running within 2 weeks of finding out that there was an issue, which was big relief on that one. We found this issue during the commissioning process. Unfortunately, we couldn't have started the commissioning process any sooner because the water standing in the tanks, once the process is started, the water will be left standing in the tanks, and that causes a Legionella risk. So unfortunately, as much as we would like to have been able to have caught that a little sooner, it isn't possible. However, ever since we have got that issue fixed, the Splash Park has been up and running well, and we've had no issues, which is fantastic. We have a few planned changes within the cafe, hopefully just to streamline the process of serving customers. making the products a little easier to browse. I'm also hoping this is going to help the staff as well, to kind of upsell a few of the items within the cafe. So that should help with the income there as well. To alleviate the pressure somewhat of the splash park not being operational within the first couple of weeks, we just have a couple of like replacement water activity games. So the weather was on our side a little bit in that we didn't have the best weather within the first couple of weeks of opening. However, the first weekend was set to be beautiful. So I've just kind of drawn a bit of my own past experiences and managed to get some water games up and running. We provided 3 1-hour sessions throughout the Saturday just for the public to come along, free, jump in. We had a few and a few water fights, we had a few things, and it was received really well. It's lovely on the day to have quite a few members of the public coming up to us, thanking us for putting something on, you know, given the circumstance. And the kids had a fantastic time, which is the main thing there. We've had a few inquiries from local like Beaver Scout groups to facilitate them coming down during some of their sessions and using the splash park, which we are looking to facilitate, which is going to be fantastic. I'm really aiming to try and get as much of those sessions going as we can, because I want the splash park and the cafe to become a real integral part of the community there. So this is a fantastic start to getting the word out that we are able to accommodate for groups like that. As I mentioned a moment ago, the weather hasn't been fantastic for us so far this year, unfortunately. Half term itself, we had quite a bit of overcast and rainy weather, which wasn't quite what we had our hopes set on. This has obviously is reflected in the income of the cafe, unfortunately. However, the team are constantly trying to implement ways to encourage people to come in, even if people aren't wanting to use the splash. So we've gone out and made sure we've got facilities for colouring, we've got pencils, we've got craft bags available, so we are trying to really market that people can come down, use the facilities, you know, maybe entertain the kids for a half hour, grab a bit of lunch, could get some crafts going, which also we've glad to say that we've now got free Wi-Fi at the Splash Cafe as well. So not only are we being able to facilitate for the children, but also the parents can come down and they can keep themselves entertained as well whilst there, which is great to see. Parking. So I know in previous years we've had some issues surrounding parking in the kind of neighbouring residential areas. I have already made contacts with the CBC parking enforcement manager. We are having regular meetings just to try and stay on top of any parking issues, to work together to make sure that we alleviate that pressure as much as we can. Luckily so far we've not actually had any complaints come in directly to us, and I've not heard from CBC that they've had anything either, so it is looking good on that front. She's made me aware that the community safety team are also in a position where they're able to enforce any parking restrictions in the area as well, which is great, and they are routinely popping in to the Splash Cafe, so we're keeping good relations there as well, which is fantastic. Moving forwards, as I briefly mentioned earlier, I'm really looking to establish the cafe as a bit more of a community hub, as well as just somewhere to come along when the sun is shining. I've seen a bit of discussion on social media recently about people wanting to put together local groups for those that might perhaps find it difficult to make friends in the area, things like that. I'd love to open our doors to be a meeting venue for groups like that. I think it's really important to be trying to invite as much of the local community in as we can. Further in under that idea, I'm trying to get a range of sessions set up at the Splash Park. So I'm hoping to have something on every day of the week during school term time. So we've already had our first Mums and Tots group start running. We had that last Thursday. Again, really well received. We had quite a few people through the doors, had some lovely feedback on the day about how, you know, it was nice that we were providing that facility for the community. We've taken on a bit of feedback from last week, making a few little adjustments moving forward. So I'm hoping that these things will continually grow, expand, and we can continue to meet the needs of the community there. I'd love to get some book club events going, some board game sessions, and I really want to try and cater to all age ranges in the community. So I'm trying to make sure that we are tailoring different sessions at appropriate times in the week to each age group. Kind of trying to progress a little kids corner there as well, just to make it a bit more user friendly. So at the minute I'm trying to incorporate a nice mural in one of our areas and set up as a nice space for the children to enjoy when they come in. That can also then be utilised for the mums and tots sessions as well, just to make it that bit more inviting, encourage people to stay a bit longer. One of the main aims this year, we're looking to keep the splash park open, is increasing our income from venue hire. I have already had a number of people come to me and inquire as to whether they can hire out the venue. This has been for a range of activities already. We've had one person inquire regarding a baby massage session, which again will be nice. We can tie it in with our mums and tots sessions. I've had someone inquire as to hiring it for a birthday party and potentially for block booking to have a yoga session going on in the evenings as well. So it's looking really positive in that respect. I've also reached out to some local party organisers to see if we are be able to be used as one of their venues as well. So yeah, looking really positive on that front. So last point, it's not the last point, my apologies. So looking at the income and expenditure, bizarrely, considering the Splash Park wasn't operational, we had a fantastic first week at Splash. I do think the weather was largely to play for that then. We had a lot of footfall in the park itself, and that reflected on the amount of people that were coming into the cafe. Also, that was the week that we had our water games running, and we noticed a real kind of surge in income on that day. So definitely something that would be nice to repeat further down the line. Just as a community initiative, even though the Splash Park is operational, to get those games going again, I think would be fantastic. Currently, the cafe sadly isn't performing quite as positively as it did last year. However, like I said, we have been quite negatively impacted on the weather, and we are doing our best to implement a few things to make sure that we are not so weather dependent moving forwards. Yeah, that's everything. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Lauren, and James as well, obviously, for your efforts in getting everything up and running again. I'd just like to take the opportunity to welcome you, Lauren, to your new role, and wish you every success in it. Sounds like you've got some great ideas there and initiatives to drive things forward. And unfortunately, despite the unfortunate problems that we had with the opening, you managed to get it quickly sorted out. And it's good to know we have a strategy for marketing and project initiatives going forward to enhance the income. So that's really good. Do we have any questions from members, please?
Thank you, Chair, and welcome to your new role as well.
Thank you.
As Chair of Grounds and Environment Services. Oh, Lauren, like, wow, to come into a new job and have the challenge of the equipment not working properly, but then to see on social media all of the posts that you've shared and the positive steps you've taken to mitigate that issue. I saw the water games and I just thought, wow, you're introducing things in the Splash Park that we maybe haven't done before, and the Splash Park has always been run really well. But it's nice to see new things happening as well to get the community engaged. But what you just described there is your mindset and the role that you're taking and where you're taking it is very community driven, which is really awesome, because that's what the community wants, I think. Whether, I mean, none of us can do anything about that, and it's a really shame. But like you said, in the first week, the takings actually were up on last year because of the games that you've introduced. And yeah, just welcome and keep it up. Your ideas sound awesome. And I love the communication with the community at large on Facebook. It really helps. And all the other social media platforms that we use. Thank you. Thank you for the report. You delivered it really fast. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you for the report. Well presented, really easy to understand. Just wondering, you've got the income and expenditure on here, which shows the difference to budget. I was wondering where we are kind of deficit and surplus wise so far. We're a month into opening. Is it losing money? Is it breaking even? That's up to budget, isn't it? Not to profit and loss.
In terms of to budget, it's very early days to tell because we're still in first quarter, but we'll be able to present a better picture at the next report of where we're at. But as we're only a few weeks over, it's a bit difficult because the budget doesn't align with staffing, and we've had to obviously do a big stock intake of products which are disproportionate. So next report we'll be able to give you a clearer picture of where we are against budget.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
This?
Then are the members of your committee? Because I'm not on the committee. Is it? No. I just if there's not, then I'll come in. But I'm just waiting if any of your members wanted to speak.
And up, so.
Okay. Just Lauren, we had a conversation Saturday. You've done a tremendous job. You know you've got my support, and everyone around the table was really grateful for what you've done so far. With the parking, I had to go to the doctor's surgery in Kirby Road this last week, and I parked out on the road because there happened to be a space, but our car park was full at 10 o'clock in the morning. That is going to stop our people from being able to use the park. The park was empty, so it certainly wasn't people using the park, dog walkers or anything like that. We've had this conversation, haven't we, before? And when I was out on the road waiting for my mum to come out for her appointment, it was clear that people were going backwards and forwards from the doctor's surgery to the car park. Is it time that we had another conversation with the doctor's surgery and have that conversation with them, especially whilst we're open? It's an open season for us. This is our critical time. I know when we looked into it a bit further previously, it was also the school teachers and possibly some of the police officers in training that were parking there because it was a free car park. So I'm just thinking, let's try and cover all angles and try and reduce the impact on our people wanting to use our park and play area if we can.
Yeah, thank you, Liz. I think it's a very valid point, and that's something to be considered. Peter?
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate that what I'm going to say does cross into community services insofar as in the past we have asked about a link between, shall we say, Priory Shop and Splash Park. But I think what has been raised in the past, whether or not there is room, and from what you've been saying, Children's Corner and so on, maybe there is even less space to perhaps put some items from the shop as an advertisement for the shop. And I think it can work both ways round as well. That I don't know if in the shop, at least I don't think so, we actually have some sort of advertisement about the Splash Park, about the Splash Cafe. So there could be some sort of feed off from each other. I was just wondering whether you'd thought of that, and whether or not also there's a community window in West Street where we've got the sort of television or the whatever we call it, screen advertising our service and so on, just to cross check that we have got something about the Splash Park, the Splash Cafe there as well. It is just trying to get people to realise that there are two bits, because people who use the Splash Park don't necessarily know about the Priory Shop and vice versa. So if we were able to have some items like the friendship paint, which seems to be very popular, on display in the Splash Cafe, then that could help.
There's absolutely scope for that. So we've got a display cabinet in there at the moment where we're displaying some of our current products that we're selling, but it's not full. So let's put some in there. Let's get some in there. Absolutely.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, is there anyone else that would like to make any comments? Okay. I've just got one question. I mean, based on what Liz said, do we actually own the car park to the point that we can actually put a signage up to say that this is only available for the Bennett Rec and the cafe?
The signage is already out.
I think, Chair, we've already got some signage up. What we might need to do is to check it to see whether it's still in reasonable condition and very obvious.
Yeah.
I know we put some up last year on the tennis courts, I think the year before. So we could double check that, but there is information up there which says this is for patrons of the park only.
Right, okay. Just
It sounds like people are ignoring it, and of course we've got no real enforcement power
quite.
with regard to moving them on.
But yes, it would be good to make sure that the signage is clear and it's not obvious or anything, so that's.
And I think, Chair, what myself and Lauren will visit the surgery and make contact with them.
Yeah,
And
I think that's a
say
good
that
idea.
we're entering our summer busy period. We really do need the car park clear for our splash park users.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to do it and to do it through there with their
So
practice.
we'll report back on that at the next meeting.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll move on to agenda item 7, which is the ground information report, which is split into 3 parts. I believe that Mary is going to give us the first part of the report on the. Go ahead.
Good evening, members. It is a very short report this evening. We remain thankful to the Friends of the Cemetery who continue to volunteer twice monthly. The cemetery has also recently retained its silver status for the ICCM Charter for the Bereaved. We signed up to the Charter in 2013, obtaining bronze in the first year, and then have retained silver since. As it says in the report, the Charter defines the rights of individuals who experience bereavement, but also sets out standards for burials and funerals. An item that's not in the report, but if I can just update you that we are currently advertising in the cemetery for the full-time position of cemetery grounds and administration assistant. It's currently a part-time role, which will now be full-time, and the closing date is on Monday the 17th. And then moving on to the allotments, there are currently 290 people on the waiting list. We are currently carrying out an exercise whereby we are contacting those people on the list to see if they wish to remain on it. And the first inspections of the year took place in April, and the next inspections will take place in July.
Thank you, Mary. Do we have any specific questions for that part of the?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much for the report, Mary. My only question is, you mentioned about the role that's being advertised and has a closing date of Monday the 17th. Have you received many applications for it? Do you require us to share it for you?
We have received some, but they're all not coming directly through to me. They actually go through to info. So we have had a good response. I've had quite a few inquiries by telephone and by email. So I am hoping that that we will have a good update.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Mary. A couple of comments. One is maiden barrow allotments. I've been asked by users of maiden barrow allotments, is there any chance that we can cut the grass leading to the allotments a bit more frequently? In the access way to the allotments, that was just a specific request.
Yeah, no, I can get a look at that.
Also, from and some other allotment tenants that wish to remain nameless, when we do the letters to the allotment tenants, the first letter that says you need to cultivate your land, like the warning letter, I've been asked, can that be a bit more cordial? They found it was quite abrupt, a bit aggressive, and they felt it was just a bit, I don't know, they found it somewhat offensive, and they just thought it was not very teamworky. Sort of, they felt that it could have been a bit nicer. They were a bit taken aback.
Okay, no, that's fine. It is a letter that we've had for many years, so I'm more than happy to take a look at it. Just to say that we do also ring tenants as well.
Sure.
And have a conversation with them. So it's not always, it isn't always a letter. We do try to be sensitive
That's
to
good.
the tenants and their needs, and if they keep us updated in anything that's going on that prevents them from cultivating, then we're always happy to listen and take that into allowance. But no, definitely I will have a look at the letter again, or the email again.
That would be great. Also, every time I go to the allotments, they always complain that they always point around at the allotments that aren't being worked on, and there seems to be a general consensus that we're not very, despite my last comments about the wording of the letters, like that we're not being very strict as to cultivation, and that a lot of people are not doing very much to their allotment land, and that and basically questioning, can we be stricter in our regulations for people to do? I know it seems contrary to what I've just said about can the letters be nicer, but can we also, there seems to be a lot of people pointing around at allotments saying, look, they've not worked on their allotment, that's allotment space that could be used and it's overgrown and it's unsightly.
Tenants aren't always, they can't be privy to what goes on with other tenants and why a plot isn't being worked. So in the first instance, there may be a very good reason which we can't share with anybody else. Once the plot is given up, there then is probably nearly a month process. By the time we make the call, we try to arrange to meet the tenant on the site. They then have to agree to accept it. We then have to send out paperwork. So it probably isn't as quick as they would like, but in some situations there is often a reason why the plot remains unattended.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Chair, thank you. It's just also worth reminding members that they've reviewed the tenancy agreement and a new tenancy agreement will go out to all allotment tenants in January of next year. And the individual tenants have been put on notice that they will be receiving that. And just to remind members, that includes a much clearer statement and understanding of what we expect by way of cultivation. So there is a lot less grey in terms of that understanding, and that will give us a little bit more ability to move on those people that are not cultivating, because we've clearly set out those standards of cultivation in the tenancy agreement. So that will also be another tool to help us with that as well.
Okay, do we have any other members' questions or comments around the table? No? Okay, I'll then move on to the next section, which is recreations grounds, which I believe Debbie is going to take us through.
Good evening, members. First, play areas, skate park, and BMX track, which is no longer under our maintenance. Since the last report, we had a couple of occasions when an individual removed some screws from play equipment in Kingsbury Recreation Grounds. It's a rather sad thing that somebody find it entertaining to do so. However, our person who is dealing with the playgrounds quickly replace them, and we look into further how to replace the screws in a more tamper-proof one, or use other methods to mitigate this. The other item also the franchise avenue for open space, which I will be talking in a separate report. Any question around play areas, skate parks at this point?
Yeah, I do have one question that's just occurred to me whilst you were speaking. I was thinking about how the behaviour at the skate park has changed. I know you haven't mentioned that in here, but the antisocial behaviour has definitely lessened, but also the numbers of people using it is really a lot less, I've noticed this year. That might be because of the weather. But have you heard of any changes to, I don't know, have young people moved elsewhere and they're using another facility more? It's really quite empty a lot of the time now, and it used to be really busy.
Yes, usually I get informed if there are issues which need to dealt with. Otherwise, people don't really come forward to tell us how it's used. the facility. It might be the reason that the hub opened and it's more busy, so they find it less entertaining, I would imagine. But no, unfortunately, I don't have information of that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just on that matter, it might be worth having a look at how busy the Houghton Regis skate park is to see whether there's a movement of people between, because now we've got a more populated area down there with residential properties. Maybe people are feeling that they're being watched, so therefore they've moved their activity to a neighbouring skate park. I don't know, just a point of potential. The other thing I just wanted to acknowledge was Dimmy, thank you for responding so quickly to the Kingsbury Recreation Ground. You know I sent you the pictures and the emails that I was sent on probably a Sunday night, I think it was, and you responded, and by the Monday morning it was all sorted. So thank you for responding so quickly to that, because that's really concerning, and that's not the first time something like that's happened in that park. So we do need to be conscious.
Thank you, Liz. Mano?
Sorry, just one more point. Thank you so much for putting the signs up about the toilets in the hub. I don't know if I've already said that at the previous meeting, I think not, but I saw them, and it's really great that they're there now and people know that there are toilets nearby to be used. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any wish to comment on or bring up on that point? I've just got one myself, Demi, in regards to the screws being removed, which is extremely alarming considering it's children's play equipment and their safety. I would have thought it had been a feature of these playground manufacturers to actually use security screws in the first place. But you know, as this type of thing is happening, is that not a consideration? They're replacing with security screws that can only be taken out with certain tools, which would make vandals, you know, attempts at doing this sort of thing, although quite sickening, you know, much more impossible to do.
Yes, the contractor who installed has been already contacted, and we take it up with the manufacturer and find out if there were another way or any type of other screw. Otherwise, we will find a different one, and the council will just replace it to ensure that this won't happen.
Yeah, because security screws are widely available now, and lots of different that would be certainly be worthwhile looking into for that one. Okay. On that point, then I think we'll move on to the next point on that, which is the report from Green Spaces projects by Kathy.
Oh,
It's not finished.
there is still a couple of items. No, that's all right.
Sorry.
I just stopped that already. So moving on, sport pitches and general grounds maintenance. We are well ahead in the grass cutting season, and just to emphasize it, the council doesn't take part no more May. Anywhere the grass left longer, it was intentional, carefully considered to ensure that we have closed mound areas which can be used by a member of public, but we also support the biodiversity and wildlife. And this continuously reviewed, and if we get report or we feel that we need to change it, we will do so. The football season has ended, and pitch renovation season just began. In this season, there was quite a bit of uptake on the recreation grounds use, which can be seen in the income stream. Also, the new system whereby people can book and clubs can book games made it much easier, and there was more requests on using it for other activities as well, football clubs. The UK Shore Prosperity Fund, just on it's completed, and it was opened officially on the 5th of April, and we received quite a bit of good feedback on. Any question so far on sport, which is
Thanks, Demi. Just a really quick question on sports pitches on the mowing.
Yes.
It's one of the most at this time of year. It's one of the highest reasons I get contacted by residents. Do we have an idea of where the no mode areas are going to be, so that when somebody comes to complain about that area, we can say, oh no, that's a special area for this week?
Yes, as we are in the second month now, wherever it's long, it's intentionally left long within the recreation grounds, and you can clearly see the distinct difference between. Having said that, we can post social media post on with maps which highlights the areas which are intentionally left longer.
That'd be really helpful, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Jen. That was actually going to be my question, was I'm a really big fan of, I mean, we need bees and insects to survive. Literally, we lose the bees, then the rest of us quickly disappear. So I think it's really good that we're supporting biodiversity. But I just wonder, because a lot of people maybe won't understand that that's what we're doing, if we could maybe publicise it a bit more so that residents understand we're trying to keep the bees and the insects. And my other comment was just about the new play equipment. It was really good to see on the opening day that so many people were using it, and it's actually appearing to be well used ever since. So it's really good to see that that's been completed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brennan?
Chair. Hi, Demi. French Avenue, play area in French Avenue, not the play area, specifically the open space itself. In one of the corners by Daimler Road, like by Lotus Mews, I can point out to you on a map later. There's an area where there is a metal fence, and it's considerably overgrown with brambles, and it's rather unsightly. It's not. I wouldn't class it as being part of the no-mow, mate. You can see when it was cut where the driving tractor goes. Is there anything that can be done about that area? Is it specifically? I could probably take this up with you after the meeting and show you the specific area, and then we can talk about it.
Yes, certainly we can do.
Thanks.
Is there any more said on the town centre and rangers?
Yes, then if there is no more question, I will move on to town centre and town rangers. Bedding plans, summer bedding plans have been delivered on the 5th last week. Also, poor planters and hanging basket has been delivered, and the tier 3 planters. Now we are just waiting for the hanging troughs to be delivered in the coming weeks. Seasonal work undertaken in Prairie Gardens and Grove House Garden in preparation now the in bloom judging. The green flag judging was really successful. Both judges were very complimentary about both open spaces, which is really great. As you can see, rangers have been very busy in the last few months with external and internal requests additionally to the contracted work they are already undertaking. Any question around town centre or rangers work?
Okay, don't have any questions from members on that part. We'll move on to green spaces projects by Kathy.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. There's just a quick update this evening on the Church Street phone box and works for Anglia in Bloom. So officers are currently working on securing quotes for the refurbishment of the phone box, and we're delighted to have received an offer of a defibrillator, which I was defib for the phone box from a charity who are a voluntary organisation and promote awareness of sudden arrhythmic death syndrome. And so we'll be working with them to look at installing the defib. And we are also hoping to be in contact with Central Bedfordshire Highways and hoping to install planters next to the phone box. And there's an illustrative picture just there of the type of planter that we'd like to install. So in between where the red phone box sits and the post box. So it should hopefully look something like that when it's completed. Any questions?
I just wanted to ask, will there be an interpretation board alongside the planters? Because I think it's really important that we tell the community that we as a town council have purchased the phone box for £1 and that it's a listed asset and that what we're doing with it and why we're doing it and that it's a community project. I really think there should be some kind of interpretation board there as well.
I
Yeah.
agree with that. Anyone else have any questions from that particular subject? Okay. I'd just like to say, I think correct me if I'm wrong, but the picture there is obviously a library picture to inspire thoughts and whatever we sort of decide to go for. But I trust with our sustainability priorities, it will be made from recycled materials no matter what, considering that, you know, everything now being sustainable and what we need to look at the credentials.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, really, it's just an illustrative picture to give you an idea, and the intention is that we'd like it to be red, really, so that it sort of matches the red colour of the post box and the phone box.
Okay. I don't know.
I just wanted to say that I think that's great to highlight the area to have the red planters. Really good. But my main comment was about the donation of the defibrillator. Like, wow, that's awesome. I don't know how that came about. Are you able to? Are you able to tell the story behind that? It's really generous of them to donate it.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. It was a contact of Councillor James, who put her in contact with us, and so we were really delighted to have received the offer.
Who would have access to the defib machine?
So I believe it will operate in the same way as the defib that's outside of Grove Corner, and the way that it works is that there's a code that can be accessed should the need arise.
Right, because
it'll be available, yeah, to anybody. So part of the interpretation will sort of explain all of that as well.
a lot of qualified first aiders around the area would have access to it.
Oh yeah,
if they need
yeah,
me.
yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any other questions on that part? Agenda item 8, which is our biodiversity project.
Forgive me, sorry,
Oh,
I've
sorry.
gone on to Anglia in Bloom. So it's just a quick update. Officers are currently working in partnership with Dunstable in Bloom, and we're working on the Anglia in Bloom campaign, which involves a judges tour when 2 judges from Anglia in Bloom visit the town each year. And that also includes part of the campaign includes producing a film and producing a portfolio on all of the best sort of environmental projects that we have throughout the town. And we haven't got a date for that yet, but it will be during July, and we will keep members updated.
Okay, thanks for that, Catherine.
Just to say that as ever, thank you everybody that takes part in the In Bloom. I had the privilege of taking part, a small part last year, whilst our mayor was off doing one of many engagements, and it was really, really lovely to meet all the people that took part, and I really hope that lots of people take part this year now that entries are open. And thanks to Kathy for providing all the information for filming for the film that we did this weekend, and also to Rachel for coming out on a weekend and doing it. Yeah, I really hope it's a good year for us this year and we get loads of awards next year. Thank you.
Anything else? Anything? Those couple of points? No? Okay, thanks very much, Kathy, for that. We appreciate it. Okay, moving on to agenda item 8, which I believe either Catherine or John's going to be taking us through. Okay.
Thank you very much, Chair. So you have this report in front of you, members, because under 2021 Environment Act, public authorities, including town parish councils must consider what they can do to conserve and enhance biodiversity, and you've already touched on biodiversity already in the meeting. The government guidance published on the 17th of May 23 clarifies that public local authorities must consider what they can do to conserve and enhance biodiversity, agree policies and specific objectives, and act to deliver those policies and those objectives and actions. Now, we're not policed as a town parish council on this. The bigger local authorities, such as Central Bedfordshire's Unitary Authority, would be required to actually monitor their progress against actions. They may well even indeed report on some of our actions from time to time. But in order for us to comply with the guidance, you should have biodiversity on your agenda for a meeting. So that's happening right now. You should note what actions you're already taking to conserve and enhance biodiversity, and agree some further steps on how you might conserve and enhance biodiversity in the future. What you will find is that some of those things are dealt with in the action plan at Appendix 2 of this report. Your policy, which is at Appendix 1, which is suggested for you to consider, is based on the Society of Local Clerks and Councils model policy for biodiversity, which is there to assist town and parish councils bring forward this particular need. So we prepared the action plan in Appendix 2. We've set out model policy in Appendix 1. Members may wish to discuss that, but the recommendation, the officer's recommendation to you is that you adopt the biodiversity policy and the action plan in the appendices shown. I'm happy to try and answer any questions, and Kathy is here to be a bit more knowledgeable on biodiversity.
Okay, thanks for that, John. First of all, Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Chair. I really liked the report. I like the policy. Pretty good. I would have liked to have seen it a bit more tailored to the town, the area. Understand where we got it from. That was a good idea. I would have liked it tailored more to the area. I would like recognition of the wider area in the policy, like maybe just reference to the fact, because I understand that policy is something that's concrete and it's supposed to guide the council. So one of the things that isn't going to change in the coming years is the surrounding area, such as Dunstable Downs, the AOB, area of outstanding natural beauty, conservation area. We talk about these things. It would be really good to just recognise that within the report. I'd also like reference to, if we could consider within land and property management, maybe having a look at procurement with regards to the companies that we use, and maybe putting something in there with regards to sustainability plans within the companies that we use. If we're doing procurement, we can, if we're going for, if someone's tendering for a contract, we could check to ensure that any of those companies have a sustainability plan, which you almost touch on that in the report, in the policy itself. You mentioned that the council will source sustainable materials in procurement, and that grounds maintenance contracts, whilst reaching acceptable standards, do not harm the natural environment. You could go further at that point, and you could say that any procurement contracts, you check whether those companies have a sustainability plan, which would just put pressure on those external companies to be helping biodiversity.
So on that last point, then, this policy would sit alongside this council's environment and sustainability policy, which is a separate statement, which is reviewed each year. And in that statement and that policy, we do indicate that as part of our procurement process, environment and sustainability credentials are very important when choosing the people we work with, who we contract with and who we purchase from. So that's already covered in the environment and sustainability policy statement. This strengthens that, and maybe there needs to be a link between the two statements, possibly. Our procurement policy then picks up on that as well. I'm fairly certain there is at least a couple of lines in our procurement policy and paragraphs about sustainably resourcing services, goods and services. So I think we're fairly well covered as a council on all those aspects.
Okay.
With regard to widening it out and tailoring it, our responsibility largely lies with the way in which we manage our estate, but the policy gives us an opportunity to promote the work that we do to encourage others. There is an opportunity to consider biodiversity within the neighbourhood plan, which could potentially help and shape the future of our town if that piece of work progresses further. And the biodiversity is something which we're going to put into all of our management plans as well for our open spaces. And then the last point is that one of the requirements of the policy is that when you're considering planning applications, you might want to consider whether there's an impact on biodiversity or whether biodiversity could be used to enhance a particular development. So it is tailored to our own estate, but it's also tailored to us trying to, you as members, trying to influence the actions of others as well. I hope that helps.
If I may, thank you for that. That's a good answer, John. Covered all those points. In that case, would it make sense, especially with regards to planning? I know that I believe that within planning, there are regulations with regards to biodiversity net gain, which I think is 10%. I think there is a legal requirement of 10% biodiversity net gain. I don't see that in this policy. I think it would be really good if we could at least have an aspirational biodiversity net gain. I understand that, as you said at the start, you said that we're not going to be monitoring our biodiversity. Like, we're not monitoring any biodiversity metrics. That would be something that I'd like to look to in the future. But we do stuff like tree planting. We could make a commitment or aspiration within the policy for increasing tree planting, which would therefore just increase our biodiversity. That would give us biodiversity net gain. Just more aspirational stuff within the plan and within the policy would be really good.
Thank you, Councillor Brennan. Councillor Crawley, who's next?
Thank you, Chair. So I like the idea. This is a great idea. Biodiversity is important, very important these days. It's always been important. I'm very, very keen though to see what we can do as we move forward, just to keep the biodiversity kind of native. So there's lots of tropical gardens out there that throw up yuccas and all sorts of other things that encourage species that are not native to the UK. I'm just really again, happy to accept as it stands because it's the quickest way through. But if we could make some adjustments and just within other plans, make sure that a high percentage of what we are doing in regards to biodiversity, are native plants that would benefit British bees and hedgehogs and other species that are native to the UK, rather than just biodiversity for biodiversity's sake.
Thank you.
More of a comment than a question.
Okay, thank you. So Crawley, Paul?
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Just going back to the planning point, Just to note that the action plan includes when considering planning applications to ensure they're in line with the council's biodiversity policy, which is quite exemplary, but also consider options for inclusion of biodiversity within any emerging neighbourhood plan. So it might be that as a committee, we'd like to reinforce to the neighbourhood plan working group that we do want to consider how we can best progress biodiversity through whatever approach to neighbourhood planning the council takes. That could become a work stream or option, whether that's within a neighbourhood plan or in some other way. That's a kind of technical question that we can explore. But we could be spending money on neighbourhood planning anyway, so let's make sure we're spending a bit of that looking at biodiversity property.
Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Chair. I think Councillor Brennan raised some really good points. And I also read from this policy that it's going to be reviewed 2 years or sooner should legislation dictate. So it's not going to be a final policy. It will be constantly reviewed and amended in line with this committee members, I suppose, depending on what changes within our immediate environment or with the laws, etc. And I think we should all be working towards improving our own carbon footprint, etc., and promoting biodiversity. But that it's quite obvious that this is a really fluid topic. It's constantly changing and evolving. So I think we can only discuss it as much as we possibly can and then keep reviewing our policies. But it looks like this policy is very good. It does cover the whole of our area. And, you know, we know what we own and what we don't own. I think we do our best to ensure that we do the right thing. That's all really, just a comment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. John.
I've nothing further to add other than we might need to agree the mechanism by which we might make changes to that, to the to Appendix 1 and Appendix 2. I mean, comments that I don't know whether we want to do that. This is authorisation to do that in consultation with the chair. Yeah, we'll make that a recommendation as well as adopting the policy.
Before we take that consideration, is there any other members that want to add anything to that? No. Okay. Just one observation I have, replanning. I take it this means that it's not just planning that we have as neighbourhood policies and things like that for the council, it's actually residence planning as well. So it's actually mentioned within the planning applications being submitted. So is that something that we need to consider more at planning committee, subcommittee, such as in I need to speak to Nick and Tarski and Wendy to make them aware?
Yeah, I think that yes, it'd be helpful to have that conversation. Obviously, plan sub's ability to make additional comments is quite limited because you only make comments based on requirements of the planning system, but we can make sure that those requirements are being met. I think the big opportunity for me is the neighbourhood plan. What could we put in there which people would then be required to adhere to in addition should that go through?
Anybody else? I think no further comments. Right. So I guess what we've got to decide is, are we going to make a vote on this now to accept the biodiversity plan, or are we agreeing to defer that to a later date? Sorry, Kenton.
Chair, I propose a motion that we accept the policy with a statement that we encourage the officers to bring forward further proposals brought through in conjunction with the chairman, the mayor and the other appropriate people. Adopt it, done.
Yeah, okay. Would that be acceptable, Paul?
So I first clarify, are you proposing that you agree but ask you to come back to the next meeting for final approval, or are you agreeing it conditional upon the changes discussed being made in consultation with the chair before it's published?
No, I think we should agree it as it is and allow enhancements as proposed by Matt and Louise and others to come through in relatively short order as appropriately, you know, as you can get them arranged.
Okay, so with that in mind.
I thought we were agreeing that officers would make the necessary amendments and it doesn't have to come back to committee.
Yeah.
Is that right?
We're proposing.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank
We're
you.
giving them the power to
You'll
do
just
so
tack things on.
on the pretext. So I think that's a good idea, rather than delaying things even further. I guess that we need to put this to vote now to accept the biodiversity policy and the action plan provided we obviously give, that particular leeway for these minor amendments to be made, which I think we've all agreed and it's been understood anyway. So can I have a vote for? I think that's unanimous. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Okay, so we move on to agenda item 9, which is our reserve spending, which I believe, John, you're going to take it?
Dennis Finsters.
Oh, Dennis, go do as well. Okay.
Thank you very much, Chair. There is a number of items on this reverse spending report, which I will take members through. I will pause after each item so it can be debated, and if any question arise, I'm very happy to answer. The first is the spending report around vehicles and equipment purchase. Members may recall that in the November 23 committee meeting, a vehicle replacement program was approved and in principle agreed a certain amount of funding to be set aside in each year in order to vehicles and equipment can be replaced to ensure that the vehicle fleet owned by the town council is a healthy one. And as we go through a 10-year cycle, by the end, most of the vehicles get replaced. Hence, officers looking for approval, as is stated in 24-25, part of the vehicle replacement program to purchase 2 new Ford Rangers pickup truck to replace one of them is a 2006 and another one is a 2009 model. The cost of the 2 vehicles within the allocated budget, and there is still some resale value in the 2 older vehicles, which once they got sold would be put back into reserve. Any question around this part of the so far I talked about?
I just wanted to make it clear to members that once we've gone through this agenda item, I'm going to split it down into 4 separate parts, so you will get to actually have a vote on which parts you actually. So yeah, but I think it's important that we discuss each point as we go rather than vote. And
yeah, can I just ask, have we considered if there's any electric vehicles available to replace these vehicles?
Yes, we did, and as we reported on as part of the vehicle management policy and the replacement program, at this stage, the cost of vehicle and the technology is just way out of what the council could afford at this point, and it's just unfeasible.
Ask another question. Do we need Ford Rangers? Do we need like-for-like replacements, or could we lower our spec and have a cheaper vehicle option?
Right, yes, let me answer. So when it came to make the proposal, what vehicle, it's all in discussion with the grounds team who actually carry out the work to ensure that it's fit for purpose. And the Ford Rangers are currently the cheapest one on the market when it comes to 4x4 four-wheel drive vehicles, which we would need to access various recreation grounds such as Manmore and all the other ones in all weather conditions.
Very good. Also, can I say that the Ford Ranger does have a relatively low servicing cost. It's very good on its servicing cost, its maintenance costs comparison.
Okay. That's a calling.
I think I'm misunderstanding something. So on 2.2, it's that we've previously considered and approved reserve funding for the vehicle. Is this additional to that we've agreed before? or is we've already agreed it and we don't really need to be discussing right now?
So we've agreed to set the budget. It's not additional, it's the same money.
Right.
But the process is you agree to put it in an earmarked reserve for a particular purpose, but we then have to come to you for permission to actually spend it on that purpose. The financial regs work.
That's fine. Is this below what we'd agreed, or this is exactly or more than what we'd agreed to reserve to put aside on the reserve?
It's definitely not more.
I think for the 3 items, Chair, it's a couple of grand below what you set aside in the year. And then you'll put back a little bit of money into the reserve from the resale as well. Yes, yes, very slightly below, but it's not far off what you agreed in the reserve. And the choice of vehicles is in line with the policy that you agreed previously.
Fair enough. Thank you.
I think, you know, given the range of area that we've got to cover as well, the grounds team, they need to have practical vehicles to do their job. So I think that's a consideration.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Liz raised the point about electric vehicles, and I'm really keen for us to purchase electric vehicles where possible, but they also do come with a huge purchase cost, and you know that would be at cost to the residents. So I understand why we need to be reasonable about what we're purchasing, and I'm sure that you've measured everything against it.
And also, if I may point out that members will notice now that the hanging baskets up, the grounds team will twice a week watering them, and these Bowser, which member agreed to purchase, once when it's filled up, it can weigh anything to 2 tons, and currently electric vehicles wouldn't be able to tow that. So we had to look at vehicles which actually can tow the Bowsers for watering purposes.
Thank you.
Then, if there is no other question, I would move to the second part of the vehicle equipment reserve proposal, which is the purchase of a new ride-on mower, Izeki, manufactured by Izeki. This specific ride-on mower also have a collector, which is have a collecting capacity of 1,300 liters. It's very useful because it can collect grass and leaves in autumn, also as it collects it in mulching it, which helps with the process of breaking down these leaves, and also alleviate the time the grounds team spend manual handling and raking up leaves in prairie gardens and grove house gardens and any of the other recreation grounds. The value of the ride-on mower, once again, is below which was agreed in principle at previous committee meeting.
Anyone else have any questions regarding that? I've just got one question, is that obviously as this machine is capable of composting, is that something that we can then reuse to cut our costs in the future to use that compost to make our own compost to cut down on
yes,
across the grounds and environments?
The town council already using the leaf mold and turn it into the flower beds, borders. So this has already been used. It just speed up the process.
Right.
So these leaf mulch can be used within a season rather than waiting a couple of years and turning them on.
Right. So that's a good point.
In that case, I would move on Francis Avenue footpath improvement and repairs, as members asked officers to carry out further investigation around the possible options and more costing. Officer reached out and came back with the proposal. First of all, the link path between the motorcycle barrier and the existing circular path. There is 2 options, either tarmacked, option 1, or option 2 is to use SUDS rubber banded surface, this porous, which is more permeable and more organic and more sustainable. The option 2, as again members asked, what's the warranty, is 5 years on option 2, and in terms of cost is cheaper, therefore officer proposing option 2 if members are minded. The other part of the investigation was around the cost of renewing the existing circular path, which was breed and gravel originally. Again, it was looked into it. Tarmac option would be in the region of 35 to 40,000 pounds. The SUD rubber bonded surface would be 20,000 pounds. Any question around the surfacing?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Timmy, for this part of the report. As North representative, very happy with this. I'd like to ask, in relation to the different options, which one would it be easier to use roller skates on? Because people like to roller skate and stuff. Is it? I just think I thought it was a perfect question. I just want to know more about SUDS, the SUDS stuff. Is it sort of like, is it a nice smooth area? Is it what is the difference between the two, like SUDS and tarmac?
Right, so the tarmac is a more hardcore, which is an MOT type. The tarmac is on MOT type 1, is had a longer longevity, such as. Having said that, the SUD is a softer, similar to the play surface used in playground. Walking on it is more pleasant than walking on tarmac. I can't really say about roller skating because I don't roller skate myself. Having said that, there is a tarmac path right across the middle of French's Avenue, and I believe the original purpose of this walking path was around walking and using the various outdoor gym equipment.
So, in terms of sort of replacement, you said tarmac has greater longevity than SUDS. So, in terms of having to redo it, are we going to have to redo the SUDS like quicker than we do it? Say it has a 5-year warranty. In 6 years' time, are we going to have to redo the whole park? Or whereas tarmac, do you see what I'm saying? Is tarmac going to last 10 years longer because those more expensive and less environmentally friendly? We have to weigh that up.
Yes, I think what have to be mindful about also the usage of it. So it all depends how much it is used, and also as you would see the cost, the different cost on. But as ever again, if member decide to go for a different option, it's within the freedom and just have to look at where the money comes from doing so.
Thank you, Ben. Anyway.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that, Jimmy. I remember we discussed at a previous meeting, we talked through this in detail and the different types of materials that could be used, tarmac, SUDS material, and that we identified that environmentally the SUDS was good because it was made from lorry tyres, I believe. While maybe not quite as hardy as tarmac, it has a good longevity and is safer in terms of being a bit softer. If I was to fall over, I may not scrape my knee quite as much. Having roller skated down Dog Kennel Path at full speed and smashed into the wall myself on tarmac, I'd say I'd rather be skating on the SUDS. But then I guess no one's really going to be roller skating on a path that people are walking on, so hopefully they can go to the skate park. But yeah, personally, I think that that material that's been proposed is much better than tarmac. So I'm happy that we've explored that in the last meeting.
Thank you, Madam Call.
Thank you, Chair. I think I raised a similar thing to Matt without mentioning roller skates last time. That I'm still worried about its longevity, if I'm honest. How many pavements that we manage have we had to redig in the last like 10 years, 15 years and relay in that tarmac? Because you look around at the playgrounds that we manage and the rubber that's around the swings and around the slide that's always coming on, getting loose, and just, it's just a worry that this stuff after 5 years will need redoing again for 38 grand, whatever it is, 20 grand again. So it just over the period of time it will work out exactly the same.
I think there is, members, an element of a little element of uncertainty because there aren't, because traditionally over the years we've gone from paving stones to tarmac surfaces. The tarmac surfaces, as we know, do have a longevity, which is quite considerable. You could have a 20-30 year life out of the tarmac path, and it's often how often it's used and whether it's used by vehicles and how well laid it is in the first place and what type of sub base it's on. And so there are lots of factors and reasons why you might consider going for tarmac. We don't have any studs rubber surfaces in the town that have been used and laid specifically for footpaths. So this is something a bit novel, a bit different, a bit new. Whilst it has a 5-year warranty, it's a bit like buying a car. You might get a warranty for 5 or 7 years on a car, but it might last you 20 years. It depends how well it's looked after, how well it's maintained and how well it's used. So there is a little uncertainty about all of this. Yes, we do have to replace tarmac surfaces. We've done quite a lot of the cemetery over the years, but they've probably been laid 20-30 years before they needed to be replaced. So it is a little leap into the unknown. If you go with the tarmac surface, though, you've got a significantly increased cost. And we've seen how long the breeding gravel lasted, which wasn't very long. So I wouldn't recommend that option. And if you go with the higher cost, that's going to have an impact on decision making in part 2 of your report, of your agenda. So that, I'm not sure that quite answers your question, but I think it helps you.
Yeah, we're able to potentially in the next budget kind of, I never want to put up budgets, but ring fence some money or put some money aside for kind of pavement. If we're going to do this kind of pavement, which is a trial, just to kind of cover ourselves in the future for, I don't know, for 6 years' time when any of us around the table might not still be here, but we'll still be in the town seeing this pavement disintegrate. Potentially, hopefully not. Hopefully it will last for a great lifetime. But is there a way we can ring fence a little bit of money for that kind of repair just in case? Or just up the kind of reserve?
We're kind of in the reserves anyway, I can say, don't we? Or
Well, I think that's subject for discussion. So we can definitely make a note and make a minute for the action tracker for us to revisit when we get to budgeting. Think about that and think about how many parts we've actually got and what the. I don't think we've got a half replacement plan. I think we've probably one.
No, it's a bit like the fencing reserve that you've had. And most of your fences are in pretty good condition now, but it's taken 15 years to get them into the condition that they're in. So maybe you need to think about a new reserve in the future for path surfaces, which are probably one of the most well used parts of any recreation ground.
I think, as far as I'm concerned, and John already knows my opinion on this, is that I agree that I think although tarmac is more expensive, it does have a lot longer lasting aspect to it. Although I do understand the environmental sides of it, the importance of status. I think we've got our main obligations towards cost of the council, and although that tarmac can be seen as being more expensive, in the long run it's not, because it's more economical because it outlasts the other. So I do think that's a big consideration to think about here. Just one thing I want to put to members to make sure that everyone's aware is that you know, there is considerations here that we just go for the link path or the circular path, so we don't have to combine everything and say we want to just do the link path and the circular path all together at the moment. We could separate those and decide to do the path, which would give us that opportunity. And there also needs to be a consideration that members need to be aware of. with the Priory Gardens Pagoda and Knee Brow project, which is coming up in pages 39 and 40 of the agenda, which is going to be coming out of the same pot of money reserves. So that is I don't want to jump the gun a bit here, but we do need to think about it. It's coming out of the same pot, so it's something we need to consider at this point in time.
Thank you. Just to add, I've just done a quick search online about SUDS. What do you call it? I don't know what you call it anymore. It says online it's got an average lifespan of 20 years. So whilst the guarantee might be 5 years, like John says, you could buy quite might last 40 years, but only have a 5-year guarantee. So from a quick search online that I've just done, it's coming up repeatedly about 20 years average lifespan.
I do take on board what Councillor Crawley's mentioned about, we do see it around the play parks, things like that, bubbling up quite quickly, and none of those have been in place for 20 years, so or anything they're like. So as I say, as John mentioned, it is very much a suck it and see type thing, isn't it? Are there any other comments?
Should we go to the vote on this while we're on this subject, while it's fresh, before we move on?
We can do, but
just because there's numerous options here that we need to consider.
Okay.
And we're all talking about.
Do you think we'll do that?
I'll do the decision at the end on all 3 points.
Yes, that's what I think we're going to do.
Because the next one's fairly straightforward.
Yeah. Okay. When we want to the grounds.
Any other question, or may I move to the next?
Yeah.
Last item. So the last one is the Chrissy Park depot investment. Just a bit of background, as members are aware that the town council remained using the Chrissy Park depot facilities, whilst the heads-on terms of condition are still in discussion. We also feel, the council also feel that the improvement and replacement of the current welfare facility would be essential to ensure that the grounds team and as rangers and anybody who uses that facility on the behalf of the town council have a good quality facility. Quotation has been sought, and as you would see on appendix 2, officers and we are proposing, the town council proposing to replace the existing welfare unit, and in addition stock an office unit on the top of it with an external staircase. Current costs are at £73,000. However, there will be additional cost. Hence, officers asking members' approval to release the whole amount of funds which were set aside previous committee meeting. Also, as just an update, which was received after the minutes were sent out, a month ago, officer submitted a pre-planning application advice to CBC planning officers to know what we would need to submit to have an approval. In principle, they haven't seen any reason why we can't. Having said that, there will be a number of information additionally to be put in as part of the planning process. Any question around the welfare and office facility?
Sorry, John.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Brown.
While we're doing that, can we plant any trees? Biodiversity. Is there any? There's a serious question. Like, we're putting these two things. Is there any way we could put a tree near it? Like anywhere in that area?
I just go on top of time, basically.
Yeah, no,
You can dig out tarmac. It's not.
it's not our land.
CBC would love it. They've got biodiversity plans too. Just a question. If there's like, if it's we haven't got like site plan or anything for that. Just we've got the view of the unit. There's no site plan for where it's going to go in the area of what they're playing with there. So it's a serious question. If you've got a bigger area, it says plus tarmacking, on the report things plus associated tarmacking. If you're tarmacking, can you just look at the, I'm just saying, can we look at the plans again and just go if there's any way we could pop a tree in there? Would it hurt?
The simple answer is no, because the area of tarmacking is the drive which gives you access into the garage depot.
Okay.
It's gonna be more surface. It's
the existing surface. If you put a tree in it, you won't be able to drive your vehicle into the depot.
Yeah.
I know that sounds quite simplistic, but it is as simple as that.
It's fine. I just thought of it.
So the footprint of the building and the area outside, which would fall into the lease that we have with Central Beds, doesn't lend itself to any tree planting at all.
And just to offset your concerns, Matt, we've just planted 30 extra trees at Medmore, so I think that kind
Sure. I mean, no more. It's all trees anyway.
it's the same planet.
Sure.
Better, Matt.
Just to say, I kind of get the point that Councillor Brennan's making. Like aesthetically, I imagine that your team know a lot about flowers and beds and stuff. Maybe they may put some nice flower beds, shops or something underneath the stairs around the other side. So maybe look pretty and attract insects. I'm sure.
Something.
Could I just also make an additional observation as well, which I think is contained in the report, but you might not completely understood. We're in the process of negotiating a lease with Central Bedfordshire Council, and Dimy's also had his pre-application advice, which may place additional requirements on this. So when we're asking for the release of £100,000, we will only spend that £100,000 if we, one, got a lease in place that is in line with our requirements, and two, that there are no additional costs that would take us over that amount. Just need to be very clear on that point. So the release of the £100,000 is subject to also clarifying those issues as well. Which, you know, really
That's a good point, John. So members do need to be aware that the £100,000 there, the emphasis on it is that will be the maximum amount of spend. It might come in less.
How about the roof of these things? Can you put green stuff on the roof of it with grass? Greens. You can put grass on roofs. That's the thing, right?
Yeah, in theory.
That's an eco.
Maybe it could have a green roof. I don't know whether porta cabins come with green roofs, didn't you? There's one to look at
nowadays.
Look at the thing and go, how can we, like, just relate it to the first part, which was about biodiversity, and go, how can we're going to build a thing. Let's link two together and put some green stuff on that thing, not just paint. I've seen the paint screen. That's great. I like the actual grasses.
I haven't yet seen the benefit of the advice that Dimy's received because it's really only just arrived.
Sure.
But I'm anticipating that it will have environmental mitigations associated with it.
That would be really great.
Whether they are prescriptive along green roofs or planting trees or whatever that might be, there will be some consideration to environmental factors. I'm certain that
There is.
Cool.
Including the hedge at the back of the structure.
Okay, thanks for that, John. Is there any other members that want to speak on this point? Otherwise, back to Councillor Jones who wants to speak. Yeah.
Thank you. Just a couple of things I was going to mention about, is there potential for solar panels on the roof and a living roof around the solar panel? So we get both options there. Just leave that one there for people to think about. The canteen, drying room and toilet facilities, is there actually a shower facility being considered for our team? Should they need to shower whilst at work, or is it just toilets that we're providing?
No, it's more the drying part is the one where I had more interest about or need where they can dry their clothes.
So under health and safety though, should we not ensure that our welfare facilities are suitable and sufficient for those that are doing outside work, especially when they're working with materials that then they could come in, I can't think of the word now. Yeah, and therefore they might need to shower. Whereas when we had Creasy Park, and we were the managers of Creasy Park, they obviously could go across and use the shower facilities if that happened. We're not providing a shower facility, and I just don't know whether we're actually fulfilling our health and safety obligations.
So there is shower facility at the cemetery if they would wish to do so. We got a bedroom there they could use. When the plan was created, it's a quite tricky process because it's very set for limits the size, and it was really to maximize the benefit. And the drying room, which when the team talked to me about how good would be that they can keep their clothes, that was the one that got back the most. If anybody would say that we would like to have a shower, obviously we would put in, but as I said, we got actually one at the cemetery, which anybody can use if they wish to. So.
That's my point.
Thank you.
I think that's question. It's probably not, and it's probably more for personnel, but for example, if somebody was to become covered in a poisonous or hazardous substance, in the water industry, we make sure that they've got a change of clothes and they can actually take off that set of clothes, bag it up so it doesn't further contaminate anything else, and they've got a change of clothes, and they will be treated and stuff taken off their skin. Do we? It's not really a question for this committee, is it? But do they have a change?
So yes, so the team is provided all necessary personal protective equipment to carry out their work, and the one you are referring to is those overalls, those coveralls which they carry out when they use substance, yes, and they will just take it off and it goes into the waste.
And we don't have any activities on grounds that require that as a specific intervention or control measure associated with managing the risk of a job and the risks associated to that person.
Thank you, John.
Councillor
Brennan?
Sure, say one thing. Else, which is, I know this is a bad time to be saying because we're so far down the line, but it's not very accessible. Like the office, just looking at that picture there. So the office, rather steep set of stairs. I know that grounds are very physical, like it's a very labor intensive job. So one would assume that the people who we are employing within the grounds team are physically fit and able to reach that office. Just want to point out that it's not very accessible, like not disability friendly.
If there's a compliance issue with regard to access, that will get picked up in the planning process. We're not anticipating that there will be.
Like with regards to the offices, there'd be, I'm assuming that there would be an alternative office that would be available to anyone who we might employ that does have disability, who wouldn't be able to necessarily reach that level.
If we needed to speak to somebody quietly in an office, we could provide lots of offices around the council where we could meet. We don't require anything else of it.
That is really good to know. Thanks.
Councillor Jones?
I think just on Councillor Brennan's point, I think what you're saying then, Matt, is if we had a member of staff who relied on a walking stick, crutches, couldn't do stairs, access friendly, they wouldn't necessarily be able to make it to the office.
Yeah, that was
Is
that
that
was
what you're saying?
that was my point.
But then if you look around all of our buildings and premises, unfortunately, we as a town council are quite restricted in our accessibility
Yeah,
to our buildings, aren't we?
that's not
you know,
a great thing.
No, it's not. It's something that we've raised and that we do need to consider, at the appropriate times as well. And we'd have to put in mitigations, like John's just said. If we have a particular member of staff who needs some reasonable adjustments, we'd have to work through their occupational health assessment and make sure those reasonable adjustments were put in place to make their workplace suitable.
Yeah, that's fair. I just thought this was a reasonable place since we were about to create this. Yeah,
Thanks for that. It's yeah, definitely worthy of note. Not just for current staff, but potentially people we may be employing in the future. Okay, right. We now need to move on to sort of vote for these things. Now, obviously, I'll reiterate again to members that we need to be mindful about how we consider the plan for French's Avenue, because that is going to come out of the same spending pot as we're going to be taking the money from for the Priory Gardens Pagoda and Nimbrau project. So it's entirely up to people how they want to vote on this, and it doesn't have to be voted on as per the whole project. We could just go for the link path, not the circular path. I'll draw your attention to Appendix 2 on page 39 and page 40, which gives a very clear example of that, so people are aware what we're actually committing to and voting upon. So based on that, I think we now need to first of all have a vote as it stands on the vehicle and equipment proposal that's been put forward by Deming and as discussed. Are we happy with the expenditure of the £92,337 for the vehicle and equipment? All those for? Okay, that's unanimous. Good.
Be for sending it to finance for purposes.
Yeah,
Because we can't actually
absolutely.
approve that.
Yeah, of course.
Expenditure.
Just everything obviously discussed and agreed tonight is purely under the grounds and environmental auspices. Okay, now the next part, the open spaces improvement plan. I think this is the part that we actually need to really split then, isn't it? Would you suggest two separate parts? So I would propose that we have a vote first of all on perhaps the whole part of the project. So we're talking about the link path here and the circular route as in Appendix 2. With the total cost that's indicated there. And secondly, have a vote on whether we decide to split that, and then we'll decide how we're going to do that. So can I have a vote? Sorry, do you want to?
Can I just say that if we were going to consider putting a ring fence or a pavement project into the future, then I'm happy to together with the sites. As long as we've got a backup for fixing it in the future, then don't feel the need to.
Okay,
I don't know.
That's fine, Councillor Corin. As I said before, we do need to consider the other project in Quarry House, and that is coming out of the same pot. So we need to consider that has obviously had an added increase in its original cost as well. So it's entirely up to committee members, but I do want to draw your attention to this stage, because obviously what we commit to now will be brought into play into the next part. So as long as we're comfortable with that. So first of all, can I have a vote then on doing the entire part of that project, which is the link path as well as the circular route all together in one go?
Yes, please.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So we need to vote on the last part then to say that I mean, for purposes of clarity, to vote for who we want to actually separate that into two separate projects. Link path, circular route, or do we want to do that?
Right.
No, we're already very good.
Okay. And the developer's contributions to the S106 money to be apportioned to that. Those in favour?
Sorry, what?
As in 1.1, the developer's contribution to the S106 for £11,723.
That's just going to happen, isn't it?
Yeah, so the open spaces improvement plan contribution of 10,277 and the developer's contribution of 11,723 makes £22,000, which is what you just approved.
Right, okay.
So you're okay.
So we'll
You've
have
approved
both
both of
points
those
being
things.
included as the same,
Yes.
as the same vote. Okay, I didn't know we perhaps have to vote those separately. Okay, and the final part then being the grounds depot extension for the maximum, we said, of £100,000. Are we happy to approve that? Those four? Okay, that's unanimous as well. Okay, so all those get carried. Right, we now move on to item 10, which is reports from outside organisations. And Councillor Nicholas Katarsky has already indicated to me that there aren't any CBC Development Committee points to raise on that aspect. So I think that now draws us the close of that one and into point 11, where it's recommended in terms of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, the following items be disclosed except information relating to establishment of contractual matters, and it's therefore recommended that pursuant to the provisions of the Public Bodies Administrations Meetings Act 1960, that the public and press be excluded and that we go into confidential sitting. Members agree? As for?
Yeah.
Yeah.